they challenge each other intellectually and they push each other on, and they both have excellent sense of humor, and they have an incredible love and trust for each other,
Mhm.
that I don't know that she's ever seen in kind of two boys her age before.
Welcome to our latest episode of Book Reporter Talks To, where our guest today is Lily King, and we are going to talk about her latest novel, Heart the Lover. Now, look, I heard about this book when we did it during our presentation for Bookaccino Live, which just proves to you folks that I don't read everything in advance the way you think. I asked for this book, I got it, I devoured it in 24 hours, wasn't doing anything else. And it's one of those books where I remember where I was sitting when I read the book and picked it as a book reporter bets on. And I am so looking forward to sharing it with you. It's one of those books that you sit there and you think about a lot afterwards, and also think about your own life and how your own life would be if you were, well, we'll get to it. This was an absolute instant New York Times bestseller, which I was thrilled to see, as I'm sure you were. It's a number one indie next pick, an Apple Best Book of the Month. I mean, seriously, this is a big book. I'm interviewing her before our review is available, so I'm going to share a few early reviews about Heart the Lover. USA Today said Lily King's latest is a weeper. I love that. Full of card games and witty banter and sure to tug at your heartstrings. In a starred review, Book Page said, young and intense and foolishly stubborn, this love triangle takes a redemptive turn that feels grounded, believable, and quite beautiful. Jordan is a wonderful protagonist, funny, despairing, self deprecating, lonely, and determined to write novels. This is a satisfying, emotional tearjerker, a book that may just make you sob out loud. And I've seen a lot of people say that they sobbed out loud at one point in this book. It's also a swoony story of love and literature, of paths taken and not taken, of the past selves we never truly leave behind, and it's quietly robust and nearly impossible to put down. So, with all those words, welcome, Lily. It is so nice to have you here. I'm looking forward to this.
Hi, thank you, Carol, so much for having me. It's such an honor.
So, tell us how you came to write Heart the Lover.
Well, I did not mean to write this book at all. I was working on another book. I was working on a political murder mystery in sort of the second year of COVID, and the second, well, really the first year of the Trump administration. And I was working on something entirely different, and it was going along, and then it just came to an absolute grinding stop. And pretty much the same week that it came to a real grinding stop where I did not care about the characters anymore. Ann Patchett sent me her manuscript of Tom Lake, and I started reading that book. I got about 6 pages in, and I was like, I loved it so much immediately, and which doesn't happen to me with books all that often. And it was that gymnasium scene, and I was like, she is having fun. She's just having fun. I want to have some fun. So I flipped to the back of the book that I was my notebook that I was working on, and I just started these college scenes, just because I just I just wanted to, I don't know, be feel looser. I felt really trapped in the murder mystery format. And I just
We
wanted to be
are.
back in my regular, literary fiction, freeform situation. So that's kind of how it started. I had no idea this novel was in me.
Wow.
And then it just came kind of out very, really very quickly.
Very quickly. And you can almost feel the pace that was written very quickly because you feel the energy from the book, like, from start to finish. And it's one of those books that there's very few low periods of, oh, let me go take a breath. It's like, wait, what's going to happen next? I absolutely love that about it. It's a companion novel to writers and lovers, which I also loved. And, between the two books, you get to know much more about the protagonist's life. But what's really interesting to me is I didn't pick up on that, even though I loved Writers and Lovers until much later. And I was like, wait a second, how did I miss all of this? Which makes me feel like I should reread to see little, like, things along the way. So, what was your starting point in, besides the fact you want to write about college days?
I knew that we were going to make a big jump. I really the I started writing the college scenes, but I knew that I wanted to get 30 years later to that particular last section of the book.
Hmm.
And I don't want to say too much about the relationship between writers and lovers and
Hmm.
Hart the lover, because actually I didn't understand that relationship for a while as I was writing the book. It was really only after I made a note about the book, and I made a note about the protagonist's husband, and I named him,
Hmm.
and I literally gasped out loud
Right.
because I wrote his name, and I was like, "Oh, she's married to him." And I just never, ever, ever, ever have my characters crossed over from one book to another,
Right.
ever. I never dreamed I would ever do that. They are dead and gone, those old characters. And I can't think about them because I'll just want to start rewriting them. I
Hmm.
can't go back or read my old books. And so that was a huge surprise to me. Um, and even when I handed it into my editor, I never told her the connection. And so she was surprised. And so she's wanted to preserve that sort of surprise for the reader as well. And so I really meant those college scenes to be just a really brief backstory, maybe
Hmm.
20, 30 pages, but they kind of, I mean, I did have a great time with them, and so they just kind of took over for a little while. But I always knew where we were going to the sort of let's just say kind of sadder, heavier part
Yeah.
of what will happen to them all.
It's really interesting when you think back on college and you think about the relationships you had, the people you knew. A lot of times I have no idea where they are right now. I have no idea where
Hmm.
anybody ended up or what happened. But that phase of your life is like so tight and so connected. I remember the night before graduation, I stood there and I said, I am never going to end again, live in a place where all my friends are in one building or another, and you
Yeah.
can have a no socks, no shoes relationship because you could just get in the elevator and go up and down and
Oh,
see your friends. And you
yeah.
captured that where we've got a character who's nameless at the beginning, like it's coming from her POV. And then these two young men call her Daisy, and then they call her Jordan. And they're these two guys that she's absolutely crazy about hanging out with, besides anything else, besides
Hmm.
that intellectual challenge she's got from them.
Hmm.
And you see something happening that really could only happen in that kind of an environment. If I'm not crazy, like in college, that's what you do. You get to know people really well. Am I onto something there of like this was the time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had a number of times like that in my life, of course, grad school,
Mhm.
and I have a writers group, and so I still have that feeling in some ways of kind of learning from people and being exhilarated by gathering. I also have a political writing group,
Mhm.
and so I feel like I've preserved some of those
Mhm.
feelings in my life. But that was so formative. I mean, the what she's experiencing in college, these are the first intellectuals that
Mhm.
she's met, and
Mhm.
she doesn't even understand that she's an intellectual.
Mhm.
She loves to read and she gets good grades, but she doesn't have the kind of like they are kind of unabashedly, unashamedly just passionate about thought.
Mhm.
And she's never met anybody like that. And so it's incredibly intoxicating to her to see this sort of intellectual ambition and what you can really achieve in college. And of course, she's a senior, so she doesn't get much time.
Right, right.
But she sees it for the first time, and it sets her on a different path in her life, I think, because
Mhm.
of it.
She uncovers a totally different part of herself that she sort of didn't know. And the two of
Yeah.
them, and it's sitting and playing those card games at night and doing all
Hmm.
talking about literature. And they meet
Yeah.
in a 17th century lit class, which you can just say says something right there. And yeah, I mean 17th century lit class. And they're tell us about Sam and Yash though, because they're different in so many ways, but they are so close.
Yeah, they've been best friends long before she meets them. And they're both in this class and they notice her on the very first page because
Mhm.
she's written kind of like a little spoof parody. of an assign. I mean, it was an assignment, but she kind of turned it into a parody. And they kind of turn around when they follow her essay back to where it gets handed back to her after the professor reads it. And I think they're just suddenly like, huh, who is, their essays didn't get read in class, and so they're like, who is this, And and they live off campus, and uh they are very, very different. Sam is Southern from Atlanta. He's a Southern Baptist. He's very much a churchgoer and a
Mhm.
believer. And Yash is more of an iconoclast. He comes from a Knoxville mother and a father who was born in India and came over when he was 18 with zero money. And as his father always says, and I married the craziest girl in Tennessee. And he comes from divorce, broken family, difficult father, difficult mother in another way. And Sam comes from a very tight
Mhm.
family, and he's the oldest, and so he's kind of fawned over in a way. And those things make a big difference in their personality.
Mhm.
And Yash is just a little bit more iconoclastic, I guess, and
Mhm.
less possibly conforming. Um, and they're both they challenge each other intellectually, and they push each other on, and they both have excellent sense of humor, and um and they have an incredible love and trust for each other,
Mhm.
that I don't know that she's ever seen in kind of two boys her age before.
Hmm. Yeah, and she's challenging, they're being challenged intellectually. It's not just, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that. It's, come on over, let's talk about this. And the
Mhm.
conversations. And she's living in this room that is cold, it has no heat. And they're living in one of the professors away on a sabbatical. They're living in his house. So she definitely loves being at the house a lot more. And
Hmm.
when she gets annoyed at them and has to go back to her bed, it's like punishment for her more than it's punishment for them.
It
Like,
is.
why am I here in this? And you make a lot of reference to beds, to the twin bed, to the way the
Mm.
bed is. And it's throughout the book, you're talking about the beds and what happens in the beds, but what doesn't happen in the beds as well is such a big thing. So,
Yeah, that is fascinating. You're the first person to notice that. I'm not sure that I really thought about that while I was writing, but it's very, very true, especially the bed in the last section becomes extremely important. It's a different kind of bed,
hmm.
um, and yet there he is in a twin bed again.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and and so at the beginning in that house, Sam has the double bed, Yash has the single bed,
Right.
and um, she glances in on him early on when she's looking for the bathroom, and she sees him sleeping. And um, there's just right from the beginning, there's just this kind of draw and fascination she has towards Yash. And that will just carry through in all kinds of ways for the rest of her life.
Yeah. For the rest of her life, it's like, this is what there's going to be thoughts of. There are going to be thoughts of going back to, like, who, blah, 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 like, so they bring her into their world. And the thing that I loved is there are these rowdy card games as well. So do you love wordplay and card games? Because you were doing a really good job of talking about them.
I do. I mean, I love banter. I mean, nothing, I don't like anything more except card games than sitting around and just, you know, talking to smart people. I mean, it's just really and funny. They have to be clever and they have to be funny, and I love that, and I really love playing card games. And I love the banter that comes while you're playing card games.
Agreed.
Like playing card games with my siblings is so fun. I haven't done it in years, but it is like hilarious. And I can just pee my pants laughing while we're playing. Um, I don't know what it is about cards, but they show up a lot in my work. And this is not the first novel where I've had
No,
cards.
no.
Um, I find them to be very oddly seductive in some
Mhm.
ways, and um,
Where is the Queen of Hearts?
yeah.
Who's got that Queen of Hearts?
And the title of this book, comes from the game that they play. They start playing this game called Sir Hinkum Funny Buster. And and that's a game that I learned from friends, dear, dear friends of ours, when our kids were little, and they taught it to me. And it was my friend Joss's father's father who taught it, to their family like back in the 30s. And
Wow.
it comes from a board game called, I think, Sir Hinckley Funny Duster or something like that, that was popular in the 1800s. And
Wow.
and so I just kind of pulled that, and Heart the Lover is the King of Hearts, and so that's where this comes from, and it kind of becomes a motif throughout the book,
Mhm.
Heart the Lover.
Yeah, heart lover. Yeah. It's a verb. Heart becomes a verb. It's like it's not a noun, it's a verb, as you go through. It was interesting. We did puzzles last Christmas and everybody loved it. I just
Oh, it's
put it out and I
great.
said, let's do this. So my father, who was 95 at the time, said, this is going to take 3 days to do. And I said, no, you don't know your grandson Corey then, because he had the outside done, was putting all these pieces in. He's an engineer, and it's like that one of those brains that just sees things like that. So then at Easter, I got them vases that they can make. There were puzzles, and they became a vase at the end. And so this year, I think I'm going to try card games. I'm going to see because we could do that. Just everybody could just sit down and play, and we'll do something easy
Oh,
so everybody can do it. But you made me think about we used to do that all the time, and why don't we do it anymore? That
yeah.
that and Monopoly. I think I've got every version of Monopoly possible I've got in this house. So, and you forget about those things. We get wrapped up in life and you forget about the quiet things you did that were so
Hmm.
much fun instead
Hmm.
of all the electronics that are out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I joke that like, the internet went like this, like, oh, AOL, 600,000, a million people, AI's like this, like, straight up. Okay, here's what's going on,
Yeah.
folks. And I think people just want to get back and do the cozier things.
I
Like
think
we
that's
made
really
Christmas
true.
cookies for a whole day. I found every
Yeah.
measuring cup in the house and we sat there with two mixers making, and it was a fun thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've really tried to start putting my phone in a box. Like
Yeah.
really, I mean, I just have to walk away from it, and
Yeah.
and I think that if you can just get it out of sight, it's extraordinary what can happen to your
Yeah.
life. You
Mhm.
get 6 hours a day back.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Sometimes they said you use your phone 24 minutes more this week. And I'm like, no, please don't tell me I did that. I don't want to do that. I want to use it less.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
there's this love triangle, something that happens so much in young love when we're trying ourselves out. I always say the college of the time, you're kind of trying yourself out. Who am I going to be? What's going to happen? Who am I going to be with? And I feel like there's something really heady about those days in love as well as intellect. So do you feel the same way about it's all new? It's all they're people that you're meeting that you never would have met. Your paths never would have crossed if you didn't go to that place at that time.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I mean, college just provides you with so many opportunities to meet people and people that interest you, and obviously you have things in common.
Mhm.
Um, and it is true. I mean, I think people ask me a lot about why I write about love triangles, but I feel like they're very common in that, when you meet someone you like, and you start casually dating or whatever, um, something happens where you kind of are sending out signals to people, that I don't know. I just, that expression of, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
It just, it's real. Like, I don't know if your pheromones change. I don't know what happens, but the minute you start liking someone, suddenly there are more people who like you. And, they've never appeared before. And then suddenly, I think that happens, and I don't know why. And it can be very confusing, but it makes for great material for a novel.
Oh, excellent material for a novel, especially since, Sam is so puritanical about sex and Yash is
Hmm.
not. And was
Hmm.
there always this difference, that one difference between the two, or did that evolve as you started writing? Because that's a big difference between the two of them.
No, I knew that was a part of it. And I knew that, there she was with the guy with the double bed and
And nothing's happening.
and, and he has a lot of scruples about, what should happen in the bed.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy in the twin bed with the yellow bedspread down the hall who has no scruples, but she can't get to him. So I was kind of interested in that contrast, really.
Yeah, and it's this big contrast between, like one is like it's sin, and the other one is it's life. It's like
Yeah.
really they look at it two completely different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's particularly confusing for her because she's just beginning her sexual life.
Yes.
She'd only had one sexual partner before,
Yeah.
and so then to have it kind of shut down and be considered sort of morally wrong is shocking to her. She's like, finally, 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 like I quote unquote lost my virginity, which is an expression I hate,
Mhm.
but you can feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she sort of has to reevaluate her own desires.
And you have to say, are his desires the right ones? Because a lot of times you're figuring out what's right and wrong when you're
Yeah.
in these relationships as well. Is that right? Like, am I supposed to be thinking like that? And, I remember, I call it the hazy days of falling in and out of love in college. Like, it's these hazy days because sometimes it's real crystal clear, and sometimes it's like, what? Like, what am I doing? Why do I care about this person? And there's some drama. And I think you captured the beat of it because there's a
Mm.
beat that happens that many times, I mean, if there are few people that meet in college and end up going the rest of their lives, there are some, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
everybody that meets
Mm-hmm.
freshman year and goes from there or meets in high school.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're sort of trying out your life and you're trying out people, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
experimenting.
Yeah, no, it's very true and very valuable, I think.
So then we get to part two, and it's like, wow, okay, here we are. We're dropping
Yeah.
well into our protagonist's life. And she's got these two young boys, and they're living in Maine. And you're like, wow, this went from her having a trip
Oh,
to Europe, it
yeah.
went from like a lot of other things. And now she's in this real suburban life I can picture the two boys squabbling on the playground. I can picture what they're doing. And you capture the energy of the boys who are everything to their mom at this point
Mm.
and exactly what they're doing. And it was a distinct decision, I feel, to have boys, not girls. I know you have girls, but you capture boy energy so well. So let's
Mm.
talk about that.
No, thank you. Yeah, I really try I how do I say this? I just often choose to have my protagonists have children that are boys and not girls because I have two girls and I would never want them to feel like I was writing about them and that just sort of that does happen that people think you're writing about them even when you're not thinking about them it's just and so I just protect them in my writing really and I love boys. I have tons of friends who have boys. And one of my very, very best friends here has two boys, and I've known them since the day they were born. And so I feel like I have access to to that. And I don't know. I mean, boy energy, girl energy, sometimes there's really not much difference, and we
No,
make a lot of gender
yeah,
assumptions. So I feel really more that I'm just capturing children, and in this case on a playground. But yeah, that I mean, what I was really trying to get at is just her love for them, because
yeah.
that's going to become very important
Yeah,
as
I
the
noticed
book
the
goes
boys,
on.
they have fewer words. The girls say few more words. The boys say do this and they go. That is really the difference. The boys, like I can text my younger son on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He doesn't answer it, and then get the answers on Friday. Yes, no, maybe, not sure. And then you have to go back and retrace what the questions are because he's answering. He's answering you as far as he's concerned, but you're like, wait a second, that's not really what I like. I need to a word association. And then you'll say something like, "Oh, can you go do this?" And he does it, but he doesn't tell you he does it. And then you're like,
Right.
he just, like yesterday, I wanted these olive twists from the farmer's market, and he lived closer to there. And then later on, I said, "Could you get a pecan roll?" And he goes, "I've already got the olive twist." And you're like, you actually did that like in 15 minutes of my asking for it. And I just feel that there's just this like different kind of energy. There's just
Hmm.
and girls don't get me wrong. There's a lot of energy there, but I joke that like I know no makeup products. I know nothing about a lot of
Right.
fashion because I have boys. And they and there's that line, I don't care. They really don't care, you know? But but I feel like once again, Jordan is surrounded by men in her life. And she's
Hmm.
surrounded by the men before. She's in this man's world again. She's a successful writer. She's doing, wonderful things. But it's like she has one close girlfriend that she tells a lot to and she shares a lot with. But beyond that, you don't see her with other people as much. It's really, you've done such a good job of building this nuclear world for her of what's important, you know?
Well, I mean, we only have 5 hours with her,
Yeah.
and so we don't, I couldn't, she definitely has other friends.
No, 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 she does. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that's like she's really here. She's moving here and she's moving there. Well, we're in her head with
Yeah, yeah,
exactly
it's
what we
true.
want to be. And you're
It's
sending
true.
exactly where we want to go. We don't have
And she's freaking out too. I mean, in this moment, he's come to visit and she's just freaking out. She doesn't know why he's here.
oh, you have like all of a sudden your old boyfriend, your old lover shows up at your house. And how do you introduce him to your children? And
Yeah.
then you watch your children interacting with this person who is such a big part of your life. And your husband is there. And your husband
Hmm.
is probably the most patient person on the face of the earth because he knows many things about you and your life.
Yeah.
And but this person is in your house and they're going to be staying over in like a
Hmm.
twin bed. They're going to go back to the twin bed.
Exactly.
And I just like I just really like that. I mean, it was this person is going to walk into your world, like drop in to the middle of your world, and you're like, now what do I do?
Hmm. I know. But isn't there just I mean, there should be like, I'm sure there is a good German word for the feeling of your children meeting your old friend
Yes,
for the first time. I
yes,
mean, I can think of so many moments like that. And in fact, I'm going to be at an event in New York this week on Thursday, and my 24-year-old daughter is going to meet my college roommate, Karen, for the very first time.
I love
And
it.
I am so excited for that. Like to see their energies collide, it's just going to be so beautiful.
Yeah, and it also for your friends to care about your children so
Oh,
much.
I know.
My son had a godfather that was someone very close to us in Colorado. And Bob, I called him and I said, well, Greg was born the day of the Super Bowl. I said, well, Denver lost, but do you want to be the godfather? And he goes, so that's the
Mm.
role I'm going to get in your life. I get to be the godfather of the baby. He goes, like I wanted to marry you, but I get to be the godfather of and it was just
Oh,
like really funny. And there was no relationship that ever would have driven you that way, but he it was that just this communication that he felt about me all those years.
yeah.
This is really sad. He passed away last year.
Oh, I'm so
And
sorry.
before he passed away, he wrote Greg a letter about how much he meant in his life. And he knew Greg loved to travel. And he sent him a check and said, go on an adventure. Just go do something fun. And
Wow.
was not to be mailed until after he passed away. He wanted no thank you for it. It was just this thing to do. And I thought, what a
Wow.
powerful thing for somebody to do. And I gave one of his eulogies, and you just reference like what this person was like. And I was thinking of those moments that happen in your life, like you're going to have with your roommate meeting your college friend meeting your daughter. And they mean so much to the children as much as this was somebody who knew my mom someplace else and still appreciates my mom.
Hmm.
And
No, it's
then
so true.
and then later we find out the real reason for that visit, which we never knew. Like we
Hmm.
don't know. And that makes it even want to go back and reread those pages more to see what happened there. So am I
Hmm.
talking too much? Because
No, it's great.
it's totally verbatim, you know? What do you like about writing in the first person? What do you like about doing that? You feel in it?
I like the immediacy. I often, want readers to feel like they are right there. And so even though I don't love reading things in the present tense, I
Mhm.
also not only do I do first person, but I have, for several books written in the present because I don't want a reflective, I'm looking back now on my years, I want the reader to just be right there
Mhm.
feeling everything exactly when the character is feeling it.
Mhm.
I think for my next book, I'm really going to try to write in third person and different perspectives and a much sort of more kind of multiple situation. That's my goal. But,
Yeah, that's the
I would not
goal.
be
That's
surprised if
great.
it just ends up
Yeah,
being.
yeah, it doesn't, but sometimes it's the writing, it's the way you do it. You're in that person's head as well. And it just makes it special because
Yeah.
you're traveling with her and whatever. We also don't learn the protagonist's real name until the last page. And I like was reading quickly and kind of like almost missed that. And
Mm.
when you were writing, did you always know that that was going to be an aha moment for smart readers, readers who remembers characters' names?
I didn't. I really didn't. I didn't even know that I wasn't saying her real name for a while.
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't understand that I really hadn't identified her real name because, she gets the nickname so quickly and then she just becomes that. And so that, when it was when I realized who her husband was, I realized who she was. And then I don't know. I did have her husband use her name maybe 10 pages from the end at first.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then my editor and I kind of decided just to put it on the very last page.
Yeah.
Um, and and so it wasn't I never had any use for her name really strangely.
Hmm.
Um, because everybody who said her name in these scenes called her Jordan.
Hmm. Yes.
So that's how it kind of
It
happened.
didn't, yeah, it didn't really. So you have this moment where you have a postcard sent from Crested Butte, Colorado, which is this like tiny town. Was that just something you plucked out? Have you been there? Have you heard about it? What was that coming from? Because
I just wanted something that sounds like a big mountain far away from where they are. That's all I was aiming for. And it shows up in Writers and Lovers, and so I was
oh,
just being consistent
yeah,
here by using it. But I think I originally chose it just because I've certainly never been there, and I've hardly spent very much time in that part of the country at all. I just wanted kind of something that sounds good,
yes.
sounds, I don't know. I kind of like the name. And so I needed a mountain.
Well,
So
go visit sometime. It's this amazing little town, tiny town, and it's very old and rustic, the western part of the town. And they didn't pave the streets until, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. And
oh
when
my
they did,
gosh.
like the bank blew up, like from like the gas from the gas being like, contained under the ground, all that. It was just crazy. It's this
Wow.
tiny town. And my husband and I met there, and we both lived in New Jersey. And our paths never would have crossed except for
Wow.
this. And I was waiting for one of my friends, Guy, to take me to dinner. And at the time, we didn't have, cell phones. We didn't have ways to talk to each other, really. And there was a huge snowstorm, and the road was closed, and he couldn't come up. So my husband and his friends said, "Well, we'll take you to dinner."
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was this whole like progression. It's something I feel like I should write a book about the whole progression of how I got to that moment. And we've gone back to the town. We spent the early part of our honeymoon there before we went skiing other places and then went to the Caribbean. I mean, we were just gone for a long time. But the two of us said it's
Wow.
like this special, magical place that it's it's just there. And you would love the town. You would love it. As
Mm,
Shelley Reed, who wrote Go as a River, lives there.
mm.
And we went and saw
Wow.
her when we were there. So that's
Oh
my
my
side
gosh.
note. That's my
That is
side note.
amazing. That's an amazing story.
When you sit
I
there and
want you to write the essay at least.
when you sit there and say Crested Butte, I'm like, whoa, of all the places in the world, and you would love it. So do
Wow.
you outline it all when you're writing, or is it totally sit down stream of consciousness?
I gain ideas as I start writing. Usually I start just with a scene, a situation, a couple of people. I see if they can talk to each other. It's like a test, And then when it starts kind of gaining some steam, then I'll get I get little ideas and I'll put them in the back of the notebook and put them in the back of the notebook. And then when I have a lot of ideas and I'm not sure which is going to come which and how it's going to work going through the book, then I sort of make a timeline
Mhm.
that's looks a lot like a number line that I had on my desk in second grade. And it's just a line across the page. And then I put in, they have little markers. And then down below, I just put in little tiny things.
Mhm.
I don't have my notebook right here with me, but just, little moments that are going to happen. Like they go to a party or I remember with Euphoria, he gives her his dead brother's glasses was like one of the things like, and that's all it is. It's just little tiny markers that kind of keeps me moving through
Mhm.
the book and just it's not the whole book by any means. And if you read it, you wouldn't have any concept of what the book is about or the plot or the arc of the story. It's just tiny little markers that I can see that I'm moving towards, and then I just build everything around it.
Wow. And so those are always moments that end up staying. Those end up staying or
Not always. No, 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 no.
no?
I mean, I had this whole idea of her going to Iceland and
Mm-hmm.
climbing up a mountain and making a sacrifice for her,
Mm-hmm.
younger child and all this kind of stuff. It was crazy. I wrote 30 pages of it and then I just had to throw it out.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I kept that one line of dialogue of that one interview is just kind of an outlier that stayed in
I
there that she
see.
remembers when she's in a different place at the end.
Chris Bologna, who wrote The Doorman that came out earlier this year,
Hmm.
actually published one of the chapters that wasn't in the book as like a freebie for people before. Like, it just something to give you a taste of what it was going to be. Because
Wow.
he says it, and they published just the chapter, and it was free. Like, you could just go download it. But it was in some ways I feel like sometimes authors on their websites even could put just here's something that didn't happen and why it didn't
Hmm.
happen. Because I think when readers get enmeshed in a writer's writing, they love to know the process of how you got there. And it's messy,
Hmm.
it's crazy, and sometimes you can't describe what's going on. But I feel like, if that little scene is there and then it didn't work, like it didn't work, but it's a lot of
Yeah.
writing. It's 30 pages of writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You may
Yeah. I guess I feel about it. I would never show that to anybody ever.
I never show that. Yeah. No, I can't do that. I can't share that. I can't share that. What's going on? So we're talking on one of the few days that you've had free from not traveling. What have you been
Mm.
hearing when you're on the road from people? Have people already read the book, or is it still so early that that hasn't happened?
A surprising number of people come to my readings having already read the book, and I don't even understand how because, it only came out like a week ago,
Mhm.
Tuesday. But at first I heard a lot about crying. I heard a lot about I sat on the couch and I didn't get up until I finished it,
Yeah.
which is so funny because of course it took me 3 years to write it, or to get the idea and go through
Where'd
all
you
those
spend your
drafts
afternoon,
and
baby?
that
You know
sort
what
of
I
thing.
mean? Yeah.
But and now I don't know, but it's really really wonderful. And now I'm starting to hear from people who say that they have contacted their old boyfriend or girlfriend
Hmm.
from college, like somebody who either got away or fell out of touch or whatever, and that is so fascinating to me. And
Yeah.
then one person at one reading raised her hand and she said, "I stopped myself from getting myself into terrible, terrible trouble,
Making
but
that contact.
just barely. I just want you to know I almost did it."
And even if you didn't, I bet there was a lot of searching on the internet.
Right, exactly.
What does
Exactly.
he look like now? Where is he now? And they're like, where are my places to go? Start with social media, move to LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
And then you get to be a certain age and people have retired, and then you can't find them quite the same way. Oh, hey, where were they? Where did they go? This is the other thing. Yeah. So I just found like is really interesting. Like as you're on tour, you're presenting the book and they've read it and they're giving you their feedback. And I find that,
It's wonderful. It really is. It's just so wonderful.
so
And I just love, a lot of young women seem to have been in COVID lockdown and they read Writers and Lovers. And so
Mhm.
now they're out of lockdown and they're reading Heart the Lover and they're showing up at my readings and it's just so wonderful for me because, I have two daughters in their 20s, and then I feel like I have all these other daughters who are, coming and talking to me about their lives and how they want to be an artist of some kind. And it's really beautiful because I feel like that is such a question
Hmm.
for people of that age. How do you live a writer's life,
Right.
in this world where things are so expensive,
Hmm.
and there's so much pressure on you to
Hmm.
have a lot of money.
Yeah. And that we were talking about that the other day. The who you are is defined by how much money you have, too much in life right now. And we were talking about how New York
Yeah,
used to be a city of artists and people could come and do the arts, and now you can't afford it because it's
right.
about tech bros and it's about money, finance, and how much money you have becomes so important. And you
Yeah,
reach an age where friends become more ill. Like this stuff happens.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm sitting there saying, and all the money didn't really matter. Like it didn't.
Yeah,
Yes, it might have gotten you better health care, might have gotten you a better suite in a hospital and things like that. But there's so many things that matter more than how much money you have. And
mm,
I think that people right now, it's all about that. It's how much money do you have to buy a house? How much money you have to do this? And getting started. My younger son wants to buy a house because I bought a house before we got bought a house before we got married. And I said, yeah, but the house was like now it's 5 times more expensive or 6 times more expensive than when it was when we bought it. It's a whole
yeah,
different game.
I
And
know, I know. And it's just crazy how much more you do have to make to survive than we did when we were younger.
and postponing having children, postponing, what's going on. People talk about like, Social Security. I said, let's just go with this. There were people who had 8 and 9 kids when I was in school growing up. Now everybody's having 0, 1, and 2.
Right,
Do
right,
the math.
right.
Like just do the math. And
Yeah,
and we're just in a very different time. And I think even for kids going to school right now, it's just different. It's costing more. I mean, it's costing so much more to go to
exactly.
school. And are you
Exactly.
taking on debt and what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then it comes down to how much it matters, like where you went or what you did. There's a whole game going on right now that they're all in, and it's tough. It is really much
Yeah.
tougher than it was when we were growing up. So,
Yeah, it's so true. And if you want to be an artist, you just have to let all of that go. I
hmm
mean, I was waiting tables when I was 33 years old,
hmm
and you just, you, because that was a way I could afford to live, and
hmm
I could really have a creative life at the same
hmm
time because I had the mornings and until 3:30 when I had to go into work, and I needed that time for my creativity. And so I just I think you have to let go of that, and you have to live in places you can't live in New York City necessarily. You might have to live in Detroit. I just heard that Detroit is like it's having a
But
moment where there's an extreme amount of creativity and it's inexpensive to live, and you've got to go find places where there are other artists where you're going to be inspired and where you can afford to live, and that's just what you have to do.
Mhm.
And I think artists have always had to make choices like that. um Certainly the pressures maybe are even more intense now.
Well, I'll tell you something, doing what I do, and I've been doing it for 30 years, is not, I mean, lucky I'm married to my husband because
Yeah,
for me, it has been, I love what I do, but it's not where way to get rich. But I
right.
also realized that the one thing that happens when you're working for yourself, being an artist or whatever, okay,
Hmm.
you're not reporting to somebody all day
Exactly.
long that could change your life. And you're not living in the fear of that.
Yeah.
And that is a tremendous thing. I mean, I worked at Condé Nast for 17 years and I watched people get fired. I mean, you turned 40 or 50 and, the door was being opened and, shoving you out.
Wow.
And it was also, I watched my boss, my editor-in-chief was fired the day I had my son. We'd had a really
Oh,
good year. We had worked really hard. She was fantastic.
wow.
But she and the culture were like she was more like me, like let's just go try something. And they were more like we do it like this. This is
Hmm.
step. And it's really interesting because you realize the freedom that you do have, especially as you get older, that there's no door that's going to close for you. There are people who are writing at 90. There are people that are able to still express themselves. And there's nobody sitting there saying you can't go. You may say, I don't want to go on tour, but there's no stopping your writing.
No, it's very true. And also, no regrets.
Yes, right,
I
right.
mean,
No regrets.
I just know a lot of people who headed down a path they knew they didn't want to be on, and they just didn't get off. They got more and more sunk and stuck into it because of the salary and the benefits and all that sort of thing. And you take less risks as you get older anyway.
Hmm.
But the regrets are intense. If you don't follow your loves and your passions and the way you want to live, the way you like to live every day, you know, at the end of your life, it's going to be hard. I mean, it's just going to be
Hmm.
hard to look back.
What's that line? You're never going to regret how many days you worked. You're going to regret the places you didn't go and the people you didn't see. And
Yeah.
that's going to happen a lot more. Right now, we're at a phase where a lot of our friends are saying that you either have enough or you've had enough. And that's when you quit. And I thought, boy, that's really interesting because I couldn't do something that was doing that either way. I just couldn't be in
Mm,
that kind of world.
yeah. Yeah.
But okay, so the cover, was this the first cover you saw?
No, it was not. It was about the 37th cover I saw. I could show you a whole file of covers that I have. The first one they showed me, everybody loved. My editor loved it, my agent loved it, everyone at the publishing house loved it. And my editor sent it to me and she said, I'm holding my breath. And I knew. I didn't even have to open it. When they say that, I know I'm going to be the person who says no. And I
Hmm.
was. And I really said no. And I could not. And yeah. And so many, 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 many. And then finally we landed on this. And it was perfect. And we all agreed. And, I don't know if you see the Gatsby reference. I did not when I
I
first
did
saw
not.
it.
I did not.
But
Now I'm seeing. Now I am
yeah,
getting
that
it.
classic, iconic Gatsby cover that of the paperback in high school that I read, the eyes and the
Yes.
tear, exact.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was so clever.
Clever. And I didn't get it. I did. I was just listening to an interview done yesterday and they're talking about the cover and I was like, oh, now I'm getting what they're talking about. But till then, no, no.
Yeah, yeah, and also, of course, the daisy and the
Yeah.
and the tears and everything. It's a cover that you understand a lot better once you read the book.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely understand it. And even with the word a novel in her mouth, it's like she's
Oh,
a wordsmith. The whole
oh,
thing works.
yeah,
The
that's
whole
so
thing
good. I never even thought about
The,
that.
the whole thing, the whole thing kind of works. And I don't know. You know what I also love? It's slim. There's not extra, it's not bloated. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
writing right now. I mean, I'm reading something right now that's almost 500 pages. And when you pick that up, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be how long does it take me to read this? Even if I'm loving it, there's
Hmm.
so much I need to read. And I find I
Hmm.
just sit there and go, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Even if I'm really wrapped up in it, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And this business of being able to devour something right now, I think we're at a point in our world that that's what people want to be able to do. Sit down,
Mm.
escape, read something fabulous, and then go talk about it to everybody. And I've been telling everybody, you want to go read this book. I'll probably have my book club read it next. I have this book club. Everybody's 20 years younger than I am. We are moms, and it's always at my house so they don't have to clean. It's always like, and the
Oh,
wine
it's
comes
great.
out, and we have such a good time. But it's like, okay, I think you're going to like this book, and I think we're going to have like a fabulous discussion. So,
That's great. Well, the reason it's so slim is because it was a very easy book to write until it wasn't, until I got to that last part. And then it was hard. And then the revisions were hard because it wasn't working and it took me a very long time. But the way I kind of got through was just telling myself this doesn't have to be a long book. This
mhm,
could be a 200-page book. And it really was a 200-page
mhm,
book at first.
mhm.
And I think that helps me, like I don't have to do too much. It's not the idea kind of gives me a sense of how long it's going to be anyway, but it's sort of reassuring. This was reassuring that I wasn't going to have to write 350 pages about this.
Yeah, we're going to have to. And also, there's a question that comes up at one point that we don't get answered for a very long time. And we're
Yes.
all sitting there, and there's a jump, and there's something wonderful about the way those two scenes juxtapose with each other. And
Mm,
I don't know, I just think
God.
that it's one of these books that It's brisk, but there's so much there to sit there and talk about.
Mm.
So then the audiobook's narrated by Rebecca Loman. What about, and she's not the person who did, I just looked this up, Writers and Lovers. I was wondering if it was going to be the same person, and it wasn't. So what did you love about her voice?
Well, the person who read Writers and Lovers has died.
Oh, I'm so
And
sorry. I
so,
did not
you
know that.
know, so
Oh,
we needed to go back to I know, so
oh
sad. She
my
was such a
gosh.
great reader. But then I discovered Rebecca Loman for
Mhm.
this one, and she's, also just a beautiful reader, I think. I can't listen to the whole thing, of
Yeah.
course, because again, I would just want to start rewriting
Yeah.
everything. But I have listened to the first few pages and I love it. And I've heard from people that they really like it. So I'm really glad about that.
That's like
She's
really, really
wonderful.
good. So are you working on something now besides trying to make planes, trains, and automobiles and cabs all over the country?
I have a new idea and I have a lot of research books
Hmm.
that are very, very long. And I have to rip them, I think, in half. They're used books, and I'm afraid just to take them on trips, I cannot carry a whole one of them.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna try to do my research while I'm on my planes, trains, and automobiles, and and hopefully start taking notes. That's my plan.
that's your plan. Well, I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. I know that we just finished, and I wish you so much luck on your tour because I know the touring is not easy these days. It's not easy making trains, planes, and automobiles. But I hope you're seeing a lot of love for this book because it's one of those things you just go sit and talk about immediately when you finish. And you're like, and I remember writing about it in the newsletter, and I said, I literally they sent it to me overnight. I read it, and I was like, I got to talk to this person. This is going to be amazing. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it because I know this is like the one day you have free. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Carol, so much. This is so fun.
And to everybody else, look forward to seeing you next time on Book Reporter Talks to.